Hi and welcome. Today I have a art tag for you. Now I start my art tags with Bristol smooth paper. I cut them on my Cricut, but you can use any art tag. It doesn't even have to be a tag. It could be a card, whatever you want. It could be the front of a card that you're going to send to someone. I'm going to do some stencil pressing. I'm putting some salvage patina on the back of around the front, really, and I'm spritzing it with water, and then I'm gonna lay it down on my tag to get an impression. And there's a reason I'm using salvage patina, because my background is going to be salvage patina. So anything that smooshes out or does not, or dries too quickly to collect the embossing powder is going to be the color of my background, so no big deal. So I'm just getting an impression. I don't want a full one, obviously, by how I added my inks. And now I'm going to add some distress powder very quickly before it dries. Some of it will dry, but and I'm using some copper. Right, that's copper. Yes, copper. And I'm applying liberally because some of it has some pretty heavy water. So you want to make sure when you're embossing it too that you emboss it enough so that it's embossing all the way through, like if you have some layered up. I love this technique for embossing because it makes an unusual shape each time. I would never be able to get this shape again. I could try it, but it would never be the same. So you can do this, and you can make one for, many people, but they would all be different. So now I'm embossing with my heat tool, and like I said, you just want to make sure that everything is melted. There might be some thicker areas where more embossing powder laid down. So you just want to make sure you get through that. And then some very light areas. And see how you can see some of my salvage patina. Now, if my background was going to be pink, say, it might look interesting to see that salvage patina sticking out. It might add some interesting effect. But if you don't want that, you can use the same color you're going to use as your background. So now it's ready to continue, and I'm going to cover the whole thing with salvage patina. Now I'm going to do some aging to it, so it's not going to look so pristine salvage patina. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm taking, I was thinking that was, I think that is graphite. Yes, that's graphite. And I'm just kind of laying it down. I'm not really making sure things line up. You could try to do the whole thing in one press. That's a stamp from Stampers Anonymous. I'll have it linked in the description. Now I'm going to add some vintage photo. I'm going to start around the edges, but I do add some just kind of where the salvage patina meets the copper. And I gotta say, I plan what colors I'm going to use for the most part. Sometimes I add things that I hadn't planned, but as I'm going, I just look to see what does it need. It needs something. What does it need? And I just take it from there. Like, I hadn't really thought about putting vintage photo in the middle, but it needed it. And then I'm also going to do some smooshing of salvage patina to give some layered salvage patina in there, so it's not just one solid, look of salvage patina. I'll have some layered effects. I see how you have some heavier areas of salvage patina. Once you layer them and dry them, then I think I might even smoosh it some more. Oh, maybe not. Oh, I am. I wanted clean ink. So to get a good layer, you dry in between so that they just will layer on top of each other instead of just being merging all together. Now that's starting to look like a vintage looking tag. Now I'm getting ready to do some collaging. I got this, all these are digital items except for the sentiment. And this first one, I just had something on the side there that I felt needed it to say something. So I took one of my stamps from Eccentric. It has a bunch of stamps you can use for different things. And just stamped Workroom 220 on the side. I think it's 220. And all the ephemera will get vintage photo on the edges, just so there's no white edges. This next piece was like a ticket, and I don't know, I just wanted something on the other half of that ticket, so I stamped another stamp from Eccentric. Now it's not quite as dark as the other one, so had I really thought about it, I probably would have used my StazOn black. Or if you have an Archival black, maybe you'd use that. It's always nice to have a lot of options prepped and ready, so I always have like a tub full of several tubs actually, like one full of like numbers and labels like this, and then I have a bunch of these waffle papers all printed and cut from my Cricut. I think if you have a Sizzix, they have something that you could use. It wouldn't probably look exactly like this, but and then the flower is a newer digital download of mine. I'll have it linked in the description. I thought it looked good with the copper. So I think I've decided on everything, and I'm going to start gluing down. On my digitals, I print on 90-pound white cardstock. To me, it's the perfect. It gives it some weight, but yet it's not cumbersome to cut. I fussy cut everything. So if you're gonna fussy cut things, you don't want the paper too heavy, but if you're gonna glue things down, you don't want it too light because it can bubble. Like I'd never use copy paper. I think that's just too flimsy and light. But 90 pound to me, because I use lots of cardstocks for my Etsy shop, but 90 pound, I tried them, several of them, but 90 pound was to me the perfect weight. So that waffle paper was just cut from some cardstock I had that I wasn't using, and so I just used that for my waffle cut. Now, decided I want the flower head, to be elevated a little bit, so I'm adding my favorite 3D dots. These are a shallower, they're 1 millimeter thick, so they're not going to make it stand out way too high like some of them do. These are very shallow and perfect for layering different things. They're available in my YouTube storefront. They'll be linked in the description. You pay the same price you would otherwise, but I make a very small commission. The rest of it is going to be glued down. And then I don't like to have a stem just hanging out there, so my last piece will be used to cover up the stem end. I'm going to add a sentiment. I'm going to use Tim Holtz clippings, mainly because I like the different colors. And I'm grab one that says, "See the beauty of this life." And even though it's a sticker, I do add glue because I just want to make sure that a couple years down the road my sticker isn't coming off. And the last thing I'm going to do is add a ribbon. I use seam binding rayon ribbon because it holds a color well. It also crinkles up some, and I don't know, I just like it. It's also available in my Amazon storefront. I'm going to add some vintage photo, and that's going to be the only color I add. But this ribbon does do multicolors very well. And I keep mine balled up in a little ball when I'm drying it. It dries fairly quickly. I often am impatient and don't wait for it to completely dry. But that's okay, really, because once you get it on, you can recrinkle it. So it will then dry on its own into like a crinkled ribbon. I just pull mine lightly because I don't have anything that protects that hole from ripping. And that's it. I have some final pictures coming up. If you haven't subscribed, I invite you to do so. If you like this, give me a thumbs up or a comment. I'd appreciate it. And I'll see you next time.